Right, boys, we are officially live on the second episode of the pod. I wanted to quickly say before we get into anything that this episode is going to be based on men's mental health. In the description of the video, we're going to have a bunch of different charities such as Mind and Calm with the links to the website and the numbers. If anyone who's watching this is experiencing any mental health issues and is seeking any help, and hopefully, if all else fails with this podcast, it just helps to spread a little bit of awareness on the topic. So let's get into this. How we doing, boys? We all good?
Yeah, doing well myself.
Yeah, I'm alright.
Chilling.
Good. Good start. Right. Well, what I wanted to get into first, ideally with this, is I've got a few different statistics that I wanted to get into and just roll them off to you guys and see what you guys think. So the first one that I've got is that the number of A&E attendances by young people aged 18 years or younger with a recorded diagnosis of psychiatric conditions has more than tripled from 2010 to 2018. So why do you guys think that this could be? What guys? What have you got for that?
Is that just for men or is that everyone's mental health?
So that's young people's. We'll go into men's in a little bit.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting statistic. I wouldn't have suspected that. Actually, yeah, maybe I would have. I do think with the way things are progressing currently, mental health is getting worse. There's no doubt about it. Some things are improving, so we're helping in the world. Like less people are going hungry, more people have homes. Medicine is getting better. Some curable some diseases that weren't previously curable are now curable. HIV used to be, like it used to be lethal, and now it's not so bad. Whereas things like mental health, I feel like have taken a nosedive, and over the past 10 years, they've been getting gradually worse and worse and worse. So it doesn't surprise me that the figure is as what you said it was.
Nice, Ethan. Have you got anything?
I don't really know what to make of that. Um, it's interesting because the number of suicides are about stable since 2010.
Yeah.
Um, I was looking in preparation for this at the Office of National Statistics for England,
Mm-hmm.
and per 100,000 people, we're actually exactly the same as we were back in 2001 at 10.5 people per 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so perhaps then that is showing that there is a slight discrepancy between um, that perhaps more extreme final end to the situation and people who are going in for help, so or perhaps some other reason. So it could be a positive. You could see it as people are more aware that and sort of self-diagnosing themselves and saying and recognizing the symptoms and stuff
And
and
more people
saying,
are
yeah,
seeking
actually,
help. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, that the more people could be seeking help in that regard, as opposed to more people being in that situation than they were 10 years ago. But that's just one way you could look at it.
Yeah. How about you, Barnes? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, pretty much just echoing what Ethan just said, and Dan. To be fair, mental health is definitely getting worse because I feel like it's definitely a topic that's more common in conversations and within people today.
Yeah.
Take it back 20, 30 years ago, I don't think anyone was really talking about it that much or making it an issue. And that's not to say it wasn't there, but very much kept under lock and key. And with the whole, world coming and seeing it and making it a big issue, obviously cases and people going to seek treatment, like Ethan said, is going to rise. I just think it'll be interesting, and in my opinion, it is to see if the country's adequately responding to this rise, but I can't see it.
If I could say something,
Uh,
so the statistic was A&E trips, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So when you pair that with what Ethan said about the suicide rates being stable, is what we've seen in the past 10 years is an increase in, self-harm and other very dangerous acts, right? So that's very troubling to know that, people are at least, you know, doing
100%.
self-harm, and it could be other things. I'm not sure what's included in that. It might be drug use. It might
Mm.
be, people drinking too much alcohol to cope with life. It might be cocaine use. It could be, anything of the sort. So that's very sad to see. It could be like a statistical thing though, where maybe it wasn't as reported as much in previous years.
Yeah.
Hard to say 20, 30 years ago because obviously we weren't there. But also, I think at the time, 20, 30 years ago, it might not have been reported, or it might not
Mm.
have been come down as mental health when someone had too much
Classed
alcohol.
as something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the
I'm
the
not sure.
the stat is from 2010 to 2018. So it's tripled from 2010 to 2018. Just for reference. But no, I definitely agree with what you guys said. I think it's sad to see for sure, but it could be taken in a good way, like you were saying, Ethan. I just hope that it's not taken from the way of people, because people do talk about mental health issues more. I think people maybe do self-diagnose when when they're just sad, maybe, and they think they've got something they don't have. They're just going through a rough spot potentially. Um, so these things get added pressure on A&E services for the NHS when they don't need to be used. But equally so, it goes both ways, doesn't it? But I just
Yeah.
Well,
thought
I
it
think
was something that was quite interesting.
Yeah, well, I think an A&E trip's an A&E trip. If they had to go to A&E, like I don't think it would be something like self-diagnosed with depression, and they were like, okay, I need to do this. Whatever it was, grievous harm to the body of some sort.
Well,
Yeah.
I'd like to just play devil's advocate here for that. So I ended up going to A&E for what I thought was some sort of heart condition when it was actually a panic attack.
Mm.
So it's probably going to be like most issues, some sort of mix in that regard. Um, because people will take themselves to A&E and they may, like you say, might self-diagnose with something. It may be that they've never experienced something panic related before, because panic symptoms are pretty similar to more drastic issues. If you have a panic attack, a bad one, it can feel like you're having a heart attack,
Yeah.
or you get your digits go numb, your heart rate's through the roof. Um, when I was on this is just personal experience. I was on the phone to 111, sort of trying to figure out what was going on. They said, yeah, it could be panic, most likely is, but because the symptoms are so similar to something more dangerous, you need to go in.
Yeah.
So it, it's going to be just a mix, most likely. But
That could be the
again,
case.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think we have
I
to,
agree.
we'll have to look at the statistics more carefully. We'll have to look at, where the data comes from, and it might show more interesting things once we look at it. Obviously, I study a lot of data. That's probably my career path. We might look at the propensity for unnecessary trips in A&E. So
Mm.
the figures tripled. Maybe the vast majority is unnecessary. Maybe the vast majority is not. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, both would be really interesting. I agree. And to move on slightly, based on what Ethan said, actually, it's something that we can reflect on, which is really good that a lot of young men don't do, which is when something goes wrong, you go and check it out, or you speak, or you talk about it. I think that's a big thing, because studies do suggest that males delay help seeking until like the crisis point is arisen. And we
yeah,
laugh now, but I think that is, I mean, I think we've all done it, which was going to be my question,
I've done it.
which is,
yep.
have you found yourself waiting for a crisis point, or until all of your internal resources are just depleted, or do you guys speak out relatively quick when something goes wrong?
Depends on obviously the specific issue. Like
Yeah.
with my like heart thing that I was stressing about a while ago, that definitely sent alarm bells ringing a lot quicker than other health problems might. But even then, yeah, I probably delayed it way too much. Um, did a typical man delay, but yeah,
Yeah, which I think is it's one of those things I think we all need to not do if we can avoid it. I do it, we all do it. It's just waiting for that point of, yes, I need to get this looked at, right? Where opposed to taking action a little bit quicker. And I personally have had this with I had the surgery, didn't I? And with my surgery, if I would have gone to a doctor or seeked help way earlier, it could have all been avoided. I may not have had to have the surgery, but because I was a bloke about it and I was like, nah, it's all right. I can still go gym. I can still do what I want to do. So if it doesn't bother me, then why would I care? Then it got to a point where you need surgery, A&E instantly right now. This is awful. Like, you need to get this checked out. So I feel like as blokes, it's something we can reflect on and try and maybe do a little bit better in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. 100% agree. I think most men, they ignore their problems to the biggest degree they can. I
Mm-hmm.
think for me, in my personal experience, I've just been lucky enough that I never got to a critical point. I ignored all my problems, and I've just been lucky enough that nothing happened. Obviously, I take my health very seriously. I exercise and I eat as clean as I possibly can. and that helps a lot. But if I did have a problem, I'm not sure if I would go to someone. I haven't been to the doctors personally in about 4 years.
Yep.
And
Bloody hell.
it's I think it's a case of role modeling where I know no one who's done it. Sorry, my Alexa just went off.
No.
So I've never gone to the doctor. I've never seen men talk about their problems. I've never seen men say like, oh, I had this problem and it was just in the back of my mind and I decided to check it.
Yeah.
And when it's not role modeled, when you don't see your friends and family do it, you never learn the behavior and you just adopt, what everyone else is doing of just kicking it down the line, ignoring it, you know. And I think that's the biggest problem with it.
Mm. Yeah. No, I do agree. Right.
Yeah, I like how you briefly mentioned role models because I honestly think that's the biggest thing. I feel like my personal hero or role model is Eddie Hall.
Really?
Because it is, yeah, yeah.
Say
He's
more?
not only he's the pinnacle of sort of physical achievement as well, strongest man. But he is so ridiculously open about his mental health, and it's so good. He's just amazing. He supports as many mental health charities as he can. He's so open about his personal experiences in his teens, where he was fighting his battles. And if someone like that um, is willing to put the time and effort in, like he is, in a position of power and stature, it's just such a positive influence on people. And there's not enough people like that really. I feel like there's a big lack of male emotional role models. There's many more like business and academic and
Health and wellness.
yeah, yeah.
Plenty of that.
I feel like from the female side of things, there's much more emotional. There's a much higher quantity of emotional role models, and less perhaps in like the sporting world. And you can speak about the glass ceiling or whatever. And so things are just different between the genders. And so yeah, I'm very thankful for Eddie Hall.
Mm.
Yeah. I think it helps as well with someone like him. I think, he's such a, he's a very athletic person. He's have you seen him? He's gigantic, right? So to
Mm-hmm.
see a big burly man actually say like, "Look, I've had problems with this." I haven't personally seen his content on mental health, but I've seen some of it, to be fair. But for someone as big and burly as him, it breaks the stereotypes. It wasn't some weak feminine man saying whatever, right? It was saying even this gigantic hulking man who, he does World's Strongest Man. He competes his audiences within powerlifting and bodybuilding and that general gym going audience. Even he can speak up about mental health.
Yeah,
And I think that helps. We need more though. So we need people who are big and strong. We need people who are small and weak. We need intellectuals to do it. We need stupid people to do it. So it'd be nice to see a whole range of people that no matter where you went, so you didn't have to watch Eddie Hall. Let's say you watch someone else, you Brian Shaw or anyone else, you'd be able to get that same role model, that same information. And I think it's definitely better nowadays, and I think it's gonna improve. But I think in the past 5 years, it's been pretty awful for men looking for things, and it's just the role modeling. And to bring it
yeah,
back to what you said about the females, that in construction and plumbing, there's not many female workers, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons why not many females go into it because there's no role models. They don't see anyone of their gender doing it, so they don't do it. Um, in my personal experience at Loughborough University, the MMA club has one girl, and there's no other girls, and sometimes she doesn't even come. And the rest is fully guys. In the jiu-jitsu club, there's a few girls and a female sensei. And when new people come and try out the club and they see a few girls and they train with girls and then there's a female sensei, it definitely helps them understand that they can do it. They've role modeled it and it empowers them to join these things because of the role models.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really important and that we should try promote more mental health awareness in, famous people, celebrities, role models, day-to-day role models.
yeah,
I
yeah.
I fully
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
takes someone to just go, any of these role models to just go, look, just go and just get some help if you feel like you need it. Which is
Yeah.
another point of which I think's developing very nicely. People are so much more willing to go and get help, go to therapy or whatever now. Even, all these top end, really, really successful people, all celebrities, whatever, they all have a therapist.
Yeah.
They're, yeah. So, they're going in, and not all of them are open about it, but I would say pretty much all of them would have someone to that
Yeah. They
degree.
probably use it the most.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The stressful lives, yeah. I could add a bit more onto it. I think what we don't just need role models. We need it should be everyone, right? You need your parents to be open with you and to be open with their friends. You need your friends. I think for me, if you look at some of the research on shame and stuff, when someone tells you a shameful story about sometimes they did something, that's the best time to share your own shame, you know? So when someone talks about something embarrassing they did and you have a very similar story, it's very easy to one, comfort them by saying, you know, I've been there, I've done this, I did the exact same thing, and I felt embarrassed, I felt stupid, I felt awful. And they seek comfort in that. They're like, okay, I'm not alone. I can see other people, I can see you've moved on from it, I can see that I can move on from this. And it helps you share your own story. By both taking comfort in each other, you know, the person who initially looks for help and the person who gives the help, you both share your shame, you both share your embarrassment, and it lessens it. That's the antidote to shame, is to speak about it, to speak about it openly.
Yeah.
But obviously, with the advent of social media and with everything being so permanent, if you text something, you know, it might be permanent. If you start a video, it might be permanent. If you share something on social media, it might be permanent. We tend not to share these stories. So the only potential for these stories to come out is often in private conversations, which don't spread very fast, and it doesn't encourage other people to do it. So there is that problem where, you know, not many people are sharing these shameful stories, these embarrassing stories, where, you know, it eats them up on the inside. When you don't share these stories of embarrassment, you think about it when you go to bed. You think
Yeah.
about it when you're doing this. And when you're thinking about doing something, you're like, okay, well, this other time I failed. Like, you want to go approach a girl and you think about all the rejections you've had that you never talk about, all the embarrassing things you did with girls and with women. You think about that, and without sharing it, you never get over it, and it stays in your mental health, and it drains your energy, and it drains your ability to live life fully. So,
Mm.
you know, we need more than just these role models like Eddie Hall. We need friends to do it. We need family to do it.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I fully agree. I think when we go back to going back to the question, I think it's with like groups like us is a big thing. The main was transparency, right? Like if our group and other groups can just be transparent with each other and to just open up and to say these things to each other, and like you said, to have these conversations, then it just softens the blow for almost any embarrassment or any. And like you said, most things are way worse in the mind than they actually are. So when you say them out loud, oh yeah, that's it, and people go, oh, was that it? Or oh, I've done it. It's just that comfort level, and I think a lot of groups of blokes, we can spend 7 8 hours together and talk a lot about nothing, right? But quite often we don't have these conversations about little things like this unless it's maybe 4 o'clock at night and everyone's had a few drinks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Women are very good at that. Women are very good at unloading their emotional burdens and helping to understand them. Um, and that's something that men could do well to pick up on. I'm not a psychologist, but just from observing the differences in the female atmosphere at the all girls school and the male
mm,
atmosphere at the all boys school, um, things were drastically different in that regard. Men, if they had a problem with each other, it's okay, we're going to go out and have a scuffle. Um, and then the women's side of things is much more emotional, which can be bad as well. Um, but for this topic
Mm,
in particular, um, it's good, and that's probably why the rates of suicide are so much higher for men.
yeah.
Is that we're just terrible at speaking our mind, and there's a stigma, and unfortunately, that is the reality of it. And it's just something that as a society we just have to work to get over.
I want to
I think so.
Yeah.
I want to speak on what you just said, Ethan, because it's literally my next question. You perfectly interleaded into it, which is there are 3 times as many men who commit suicide than women, which is a statistic. In 2017, there were 6,000 suicides reported in the UK, and 4,500 of them were men. So 75% of them were men. And on top of that, suicide is the largest cause of death for men under 50. So all those 3 statistics, all coming from mentalhealth.org, like they're ridiculous to think about. So I think, what is any of your guys' advice for men like us who face those statistics? Like when you think of that, like that's our future essentially. The leading cause of death for us in the next 20 odd years is going to be suicide, right? It's quite a daunting thing, I
Yeah.
think.
Well, I'll give some pushback because I actually had that women attempt suicide more often than men. And it was just the case that women aren't as violent as men, so men succeed more often. And if we're trying to look at mental health and what mental health leads to, you know, we could almost equate them so that, you know,
Mm,
women and men have the same mental health problems in different ways, and they both attempt suicide or think about suicide or suffer these consequences at equal rates. But the case being men are more violent, and I think men are more likely the landscape of men's mental health is longer term and more build up, less depositing of these problems. Like we said, they don't talk about it, where women do talk about it. So what
Mhm.
tends to happen is a guy will just have a shit life for like 5, 10 years, and then he will just commit suicide. And he will commit suicide in a very violent way with a very high chance of success because he's built up all this trauma that he's never ever been able to get rid of. Whereas women, they speak a lot more openly with each other. As you said, I don't know if you've ever been in a group of like 3 or 4 girls where you're quite close with everyone there, and you're the only guy there, and they'll just spit things at each other, like very personal things. They'll just say things like, "Oh, this happened to me, and it felt really bad," and they're like, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah," and they do it so casually. There's nothing stigmatized about it. Never with guys. Guys talk
Mm.
about everything but, right? And when they do finally talk about that thing, they approach it so carefully and so, you know, wearily. Like it only ever happens at late night calls. It only ever happens one on one. Never in a group of more,
Or with
3
alcohol.
or 4. Yeah, so that's something to consider. I'd want to look at if men have mental health worse, because you can look at the suicide rate. It is true, men commit suicide 3 times more often, or they at least succeed. But I think we should look at the attempted rate.
I think you're correct. When I did the research into it, the attempted rate of females tends to be higher. But like I said, there's a stark difference with the amount who do commit being men being far higher, right? So, like you
That's true.
said, I think it boils down to, I mean, this is just my justification for it, but like you said, I feel like men would choose to jump off a bridge, to shoot themselves, those kind of more rash things, potentially. But we don't know the answer to that question. We just know the stats.
Mm.
But I fully agree. I think it's horrible to think about, but
I'm happy to address the question. I think I just don't like framing it as a men versus women problem because I just feel like it isn't quite like that. And I feel like when you talk about men commit suicide 3 times more than women. That's
mm,
not as powerful as saying men commit suicide at this rate out of 1,000 or this rate out of
mhm,
10,000 or you said 6,000 suicides last year.
yeah,
I think it would be better to use these stats because I hear it so often. Men commit suicide 3 times as often as women, and that's the
mhm,
stat that's thrown around as if it's going to be as if the fact that it's more should be the concern. It should be
yeah,
the physical rate of suicide, the amount per year, which is a real problem.
mhm.
That's
And
the
it is a
concern.
shame.
Which is
Mm.
Yeah.
which is what we said is 6,000 reported in the UK in 2017.
My take on this is going to be different in the sense that it is useful to think about this. It, okay, yes, it's definitely not a men versus women issue in that regards, but you have to approach things in accordance with context. And so because of that, those groups will be required to be treated differently. So one thing, for example, is the NHS, because of their lack of resources, when they deal with mental health issues, and I've someone who's had first-hand experience with this. If you ring them up, they do an evaluation, and they basically decide if you're a danger to yourself or society imminently. And if you are, they'll address it. And if you're not, which the vast majority of people won't be, thankfully, you get stuck on a waiting list. And so these stats do matter because dealing with them will be different, and making and improving people's scenarios and situations are going to require drastically different takes. Um,
Mm.
for men, it's going to be like, okay, look, like exactly like you said, perhaps a longer time frame, more specific instances of trauma that have just been buried underneath perhaps other underlying issues. Um, whereas for women, it could be something completely different. I'm not a psychologist, like I said, but um, so I think both things are fairly accurate in the sense that yes, it's not a male versus women issue, but they will require different approaches, and so outlining the difference in the suicide rates is helpful in that regards, because it draws that exactly like you said, it draws that direct comparison. Men are more violent than women. Okay, how do we deal with that?
Which is
How,
also
yeah,
it brings into what the question
Mm.
was is there any advice for these men facing these statistics?
yeah. So like I said, been through it. I was stuck in my room with anxiety for 7 months, couldn't leave my room. Like going outside into the garden was a massive undertaking.
Hmm.
Um, This was all during COVID, and like that stat we mentioned earlier about A&E, that's 2018. I dread to think what it was like during COVID. I dread.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's a scary thought of what COVID must have done to
yeah.
some people.
Um,
Well, unless anyone wants to mention anything, I'm happy to go into the section of talking about what people can do and how they can improve their mental
yeah,
health.
I was just about to say my personal experience with this is, like I said, the NHS, they're a fantastic organisation, but unfortunately, unless you are on the brink, they are not going to be especially helpful due to their resources. So I could only recommend reaching out to a therapist, someone who's qualified. Unfortunately, it's going to cost money. but your health should be number
Yeah.
one priority at the end of the day. Um, you utilize your friends, utilize your friend group. For me, I've got one very close female friend that I can speak to, thankfully, about this sort of stuff because, like as we've established already, women are fairly good at handling emotional baggage in
Excellent.
that sense. Yeah,
They're excellent.
better than men. But don't be
Mm.
afraid to speak to your male friends as well. But
Just
um,
start waffling.
yeah,
I feel like 99% of men are happy to help. If I go into any of my rooms at my uni house or come online and speak to any of you guys at all, and I just start waffling about a mental problem, I'm not gonna get a shut up.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna get actual help and advice, and that's
yeah,
you just got to do it. And I think it
yeah,
makes your friendship stronger as well.
I think so. And
yeah.
people, I like to help people. You know, it feels good to do good. And
Yeah.
I think the problem is it's just hard to start that conversation. You know, sometimes it's hard to organize it. Hey, can we call for 2 hours on the weekend? So I want to talk about my mental health. That's just such a hard text to send. And I think most guys, especially just with that, they just don't want to be seen as weak and they're concerned about things. It never gets to that point. They just get to the point of crisis and then they
Mhm.
finally reach out. And oftentimes it's too late. So I wanted to talk about what you can do to never get to that point. You know, the things you can do to stop yourself from going down that slope of bad thoughts and building up mental cages in your mind. Because eventually it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. As you start to feel worse about yourself, as you start to think negative thoughts, they start to reinforce each other. And it leads to more negative thoughts and it leads to less healthy behavior that would help with these negative thoughts. So eventually you'll feel so bad about yourself that you're stuck in your room. And that's the beginning of the end because once you're stuck in your room, you lose access to socializing with people outside. You might lose access to socializing in general. You lose access to going for walks and exercise. You lose access to the sun. You lose access to nature. And these are some of the biggest things that are going to save you. So it's like you'll get to this crisis point where you finally need help and it's so hard to ask for help. And you've also cut yourself off from all of the things that might save you.
Mhm.
So I think the biggest thing is we need to teach people how to maintain good health and some practices that they can follow in their day-to-day life to keep them topped up on that mental health reserve, right? Before it gets too late. I feel like we shouldn't be saving people. We should just be addressing the reason of the cause of these diseases, right? We shouldn't be addressing the symptoms of suicide and of self-harm. We have to now, but I think it'd be better if we address the causes and dealt with the causes at the root stage where it's easier to
Mhm.
address, it's easier to fix, and it does everyone better. Less people will be needing A&E treatment. They'll feel better about themselves. They don't have to get to a crisis point to get some help.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, I think that's honestly one of the main reasons we're doing this now, is that if all else fails, this spreads awareness for it. It gets people thinking about this kind of thing. I think a big thing for guys is we don't think about this kind of thing until it boils over. We bury everything too deep, but then it gets to a point where, like you said, it's unmanageable almost, right? But
Mm.
if you'd like to speak on what you think people can do, almost as like the pillars of mental health.
Just finish a mouthful.
Okay. Well,
Gym,
what I can give
gym,
you,
gym,
I
gym.
agree, I agree. What I
Yeah.
can give you quickly is the solutions that the NHS offer on the website. If you do search for any mental health on the NHS website, this is what you're going to get given. So their recommendations are: the first one is to stay active. At least one physical activity is my preference. So it doesn't have to be gym, it doesn't have to be running, but walking, cycling, anything that keeps you active, gets your body moving. Um, the second one is form or maintain healthy connections and relationships. The third piece is learning a new skill. The fourth piece is giving to others. Um, and the fifth is to pay attention to the present moment, to be mindful. So, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Do you think they missed anything? And is that good advice for someone who needs to sort their mental health out?
I think the new skill one is a weaker form. I think all the other ones are perfect. I just don't think they've presented it in a very actionable way. Because you could read that to someone, and if they're in the point where they're stuck in their room, and you read them that, I'm just
Not gonna
wary
help
that
them.
it won't be very
There's
helpful. Yeah.
more on the website. I paraphrased.
Oh, okay.
It's not just 5 bullet points, and that's the website. There is more on there. I just said that's the 5 pillars that they give you.
I do have to admit, I thought that was verbatim. I thought that was that was the website.
No, 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 no. So yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think it hits the nail on the head pretty much. Like, if you are just exercising, just getting out in nature. Like, you don't even have to be like running around. Like, just walking out. Find a nature reserve. Just go for a walk. Clears your head. It's gonna put you in a better mood. Take a friend along with you. Have a chat. Sorted.
We go on endless walks, don't we? When we're
Yeah.
back at home,
Yeah,
we'll go gym or something, and we'll just be like, "Oh, do you want to go for a walk after?" And be like, "Yeah, sure." It's cardio, and it
Yeah.
also, it's good to just
And we're
have a chat.
gassed for that walk as well. We're so
Yeah.
excited for that walk.
Walk by the river that we usually do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's
good.
great.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of lads do that though. I don't think a lot of lads would do that. And I think it's maybe something that people could employ. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, we got quite lucky because obviously we have quite a good friend group. I think we've just put the time in where we've known each other for so many years that it's like it's what it is now. But a lot of people have a friend group from primary school and then they make a new one for sixth form or for secondary school, and then they go to uni and they make a new friend group and they have these. It's almost like I'd call them acquaintances because I have a very high standard of friendship, right? And I just don't think the friendships that they have is enough because we live in just the way society is. You move around, you move to uni, it's hard to stay in contact with your old friends, and especially when the only contact is texting and things. Um, I don't think most people would call their old friends, for 2 hours a week every week.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
And you guys have, well, I guess, like, besides us,
Mm.
Yeah, we definitely get a lot more like actual talking together, even if it is over online.
we got too
Um,
much.
yeah, we actually talk. Whereas like, yeah, if you just texting your mate that you haven't seen in a while, I guess it's not the same, is it? Can't usually convey what you want to get across.
You can't be
Uh,
very personal, and
yeah,
the
you
body
can't be.
language importance.
Yeah.
Even this call here with cameras is so much better because you
Mm.
can see how people react. You can see if they're listening or not, and you can gauge their body language.
They're
And
nice cam bands.
Yeah.
it's besides reality, but and that's what communication is. That's how we evolved. We evolved communicating with each other face to face, body to body. And it's incredible the amount of information you glean through body language and through facial expressions passively. So
Mm.
it's not something that you have to actively think about, like, oh, their shoulders were, hunched in or laid back. Your brain will automatically pick it up and it'll contextualize what you heard them say. If they speak with conviction, you can contextualize it based on their body language. And it's useful information to gather. If someone speaks unconfidently on something because they just want to broach an idea that they came across, then that body language and facial expression will express it to you like, okay, this is an idea that they're still coming to grips with, versus
Mm.
an idea someone has very, like, they've like fundamentalized in their head, they've understood it very well. That will come across and they'll understand, okay, they have a lot of conviction about the subject. I can take it more as something that might be true. I can take this as strong anecdotal evidence versus weak anecdotal evidence.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. I wanted to quickly say, based on those 5 points that the NHS gave, I think one they failed to mention, which I think is important, I think you'll echo this, Dan, is that looking after your health in regards to your diet. They don't mention getting a good diet in there. I think it is one of the weaker ones. I think exercising also doesn't talk about sleep, funnily enough. So I think
That
that
sleep is so important.
they're two big ones. I know you love your sleep, Daniel. But
Oh,
yeah, I think adding to those five, I think making sure you're looking after your diet and making sure you're at least getting 8 hours of sleep is going to be, and probably at good times. You can get 8 hours sleep, but if you're sleeping at 7, it's getting to sleep at 7 a.m., waking up, like the whole lockdown sleep pattern, it's just not, it's not good for you, and you're gonna have negative implications from that. So I feel like adding on to those two things, those are what I noticed. Is there anything else that you guys think?
Yeah.
I'd happily add some in. Oh, go on, Tom.
Yeah. Sure. Cheers. Kind of a little bit of a counter to the sleep one. Don't spend your whole day in bed.
oh yeah, that's fine.
That I think that's what a lot of people struggling with mental health, and I know like when I'm feeling bad and down, and I'm not feeling great. What do? I'm spending my day laying in bed on my phone, sleeping, watching TV. Like, just get up, gotta get up. Like, even if you just still sit in your room doing something, just get out of bed, get moving. Um, don't sleep for 15, 16 hours a day. Been there, done that. It's
Can
not
help.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It feels like it's good at the time. It's not.
yeah.
yeah. You're
You-
digging yourself
Taking
a pit.
yourself deeper, fully.
Yeah.
That's literally what I was perfectly stems from what I was about to say. You need to self-identify what's going on, almost. So you need to recognize, and it's partly due to the research that perhaps we're lacking in school or information that we're not provided with very much, which we should be, your physical body is so linked to your mental state of mind. It's ridiculous. If you are depressed and you feel down, you will feel like you need to sleep 16 hours. That's not, oh, I can't be asked, I'm going to go to bed. That's, I am tired, I am lethargic. And people feel like, oh, I need to get better, so I'm going to listen to my body.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually not what's going on in this case. You need to fight your body and get up and do something. And that's information, again, that people maybe might not have. And educating yourself, being aware of the specifically what's going on. This is why it's so important to reach out to a professional if you can, because they're going to know all of this. Um, and recognizing independently that you are in a position where you need to get help and you need to address these issues. And not just thinking, oh, I'll be fine if I just sort of whimsy about with no sense of direction. And that's the last thing I would say the NHS perhaps didn't mention is a sense of purpose and direction. If you know where you are, so self-evaluate, where am I and where do I want to be? Specifically, let's get some bullet points down. What's going on in my life? What do I want to do today? And what am I going to do tomorrow differently, perhaps? And that's why gym, I think one of the aspects as to why gym's so good is that you can specifically numerically characterize the difference between day to day. Yesterday I did this much weight. Today I did this much weight. Oh, I've progressed today. Buzz, fantastic. I'm going forwards. A lot of
Mm.
people don't feel like they're going forwards in life.
Got
And
to set some goals.
exactly, setting goals is very difficult. People say it all the time. And it is very hard. But even just, okay, today I'm going to sleep 8 hours and then I'm going to get up straight away. And then that's my goal for the day. I remember my goals used to be when I was struggling, I'm just going to get up and I'm going to go in the garden today. And you just need to take a minute to think in isolation, forget about how you used to be, where, okay, that might have not been very impressive 2 or 3 months ago when you're in a better state of mind. In isolation, what do I need to do right now? I need to recognize that there's something going on, that I'm seriously, seriously struggling, and that you need to approach each day as and bad about the past. But also
Internet a little bit.
Internet. Oh, we
oh
had such a
dear.
good run.
He did have a good run. Wait, it's back now. If you want to continue.
Whereabouts was I?
I don't know. I wasn't listening. No, I'm joking. You were talking about you had a goal for that day, which was just to get out of bed and get into the garden.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the only thing I was going to say after that is, if you think about that in isolation, you're like, oh, well, that's not very impressive. You know, I could
Yeah.
do that any day. But you need to recognize you're not well, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's a battle that is very, very important. And just doing that little goal, although it might not have been impressive 3 months ago in the past where things were different, it is impressive now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult to remain in that mindset and to think, oh well, and compare yourself to when you were well or when things are easy. When things are hard, you need to approach it differently. And again, the number one thing I'm just going to keep repeating is if you have the facilities, talk to someone who's a professional and who has the time to put into you, not some overworked NHS worker who's got a million other clients, um, but a professional therapist who is specifically catering to your individual needs because you are important and you deserve it, and your mental health should be the number one thing, and your physical health as well should be your number one priority ultimately at the end of the day.
I agree. It's king safety, like in chess, you have to look after yourself. And I think that's the
Yep.
biggest thing people neglect. They don't focus on their health and their mental health, and they charge ahead with their other goals, with making money, pleasing other people, academic success, especially academic success. That's the one that's the most relevant to us because that's the part of the life that we're in right now. And when you charge ahead with these goals, you might succeed, but at the cost of your mental health and your physical health. When these things start to fall back and hold you back,
Mhm.
there is just a critical point where you have to just stop what you're doing and address those. And some people, they don't want to do that. They never want to admit that actually I'm unwell. My goal for today shouldn't be the 6 hours of work I got done 2 months ago. It should be the 10 minutes of getting out of bed and going outside for a walk. And that's all it is. But
Exactly.
it's so difficult to say, I'm unwell. My mental health is gone. I've let it get to the point where I'm having real problems. It's hard to admit to yourself that. And then it's even harder to take action about that. Because at that point, you just don't know what to do. You don't know who to go to. You don't even think about typing into Google, like, what do I do? How do you word your problem?
Yeah.
You're laying in bed, you're watching TikToks, you're watching
Mm.
TV. and it's at that point where, as I was saying, it's the start of the end. It's got to this point where things are probably going to get worse before they get better, and you're going to get to the point where it's just very hard to help yourself at this point. And so what happens is it just gets worse until there's a tipping point where you either go get medical help because of an A&E trip, you try to take your own life, you self-harmed, or hopefully someone noticed that you haven't left your house in 2 weeks, or the only time you leave the house is for food, and someone can step in. But a lot of people don't have that person to step in because they don't have a friend that would do that for them, because to do that you have to know someone so well, and you have to be doing well yourself. And when mental health is a crisis as it is, most people are struggling. So how can you help others when you yourself are struggling in this position? you know so it's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, boys. I think we've covered that subject really well. And I wanted to move on quickly to a different study that is indicating that there's a high proportion of men that are adopting coping mechanisms that are completely dysfunctional and unsustainable in regards to dealing with their mental health, opposing to speaking out. Luckily, we've covered a few of these, but I just wanted to throw them at you, which is the 4 that this study found were the most significant, which was
And I guess them.
sure, go for it.
All right,
Oh,
drug
okay.
use,
Okay,
junk food,
keep going.
pornography.
Okay.
I don't know the fourth one. um alcohol that doesn't come under drug use.
Okay, so the main was
Four horsemen.
so I agree. Maybe should have worded it a little bit differently because you went a little bit more into the coping mechanisms opposed to what we do in regards to dealing with our problems. So there was definitely the alcohol and drugs that's on there.
Yeah, I just
So
did coping mechanisms. The
yeah,
four
there's
horsemen.
isolation. So
Yeah,
reducing social interactions in the time of distress.
cutting ourselves off from people.
Denying suffering. So quote unquote being a man. So
Yeah, from ourselves and from others.
yeah, and then just failing to obtain appropriate support. So just declining support. So even when offered, we still decline in essence.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so to cope with it, we're declining the help to say, "Oh no, I'm fine," and it's that and that ties in with denying suffering. You refuse to accept that you are in trouble. You need some help, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that there was a statistic that said 1 in 4 men this year are going to have a mental problem, a mental health issue. 1 in 4. So one of us this year will have one.
Dibs
Statistically.
not me.
Right,
Dibs
Dibs
on me.
not. All right, it's fans.
Oh yeah,
But-
yeah, I'm
But
sorry.
statistically speaking, that's the case, right? So when you think how common that is, and as men, we just try and be a bloke about it and not speak about it. It's just it baffles me that we can come to such dysfunctional and unsustainable ways to just cope with that when it's so common. Do you know what I mean?
Something that I heard that really helped me was there's nothing manly about ignoring your mental health problems. There's nothing manly about suffering in silence. There's nothing manly about putting it off. There's nothing manly about hiding it.
Yeah.
And it's like we don't think about the inverse. We only think about it's weak to show these things. It's weak to look after myself. It's weak to talk to others. But when you look at the inverse of not doing these things, you can see that these are also just as evil. These are just as bad. Well, the other ones aren't evil. I shouldn't have said that. But yeah, telling yourself there's nothing manly about ignoring my problems. There's nothing manly about it. It's
Yeah.
cowardly, And when you look at it from that angle, you change the way you think about it. You change the way you act.
It's actually courageous. So it's weak to be weak. It's courageous to be vulnerable and to own that, and to and to try your best to be vulnerable about it, to say, look, these are my problems. This is what I'm dealing with. That is so strong to be able to speak out about that. It's far more quote unquote manly than to sit and suffer and adversity to even deny suffering. That's the worst level, right? And realistically, it's not a test. You're not cheating anyone but yourself. Like, in essence, by denying your suffering, you're only doing damage to yourself, right? That's all you're doing, and it's just going to make you worse. So I
It
think
can hurt others, to be fair. It can hurt the people you love the most.
they can
like,
often tell. They can often tell that there's something wrong with you when you deny it. I've done that.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
like when someone, even whether it's your parents or your friends, say there's something off, or girlfriend, it's like there's something off with you, and you're like, nope, yeah, there is, but I'm just not going to say it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Well, sometimes you're hiding it from both of you. Sometimes you're like, no, there's nothing wrong with me, and it's like you just don't see it.
denying your
You
own
just-
suffering.
But
Yeah.
there is something.
Yeah, that's the worst one, I think, when you don't even realize you've got these problems, and
Mhm.
it's like how do you move on from something you don't know that's there?
Yeah.
Carl Jung calls that the shadow, the shadow part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't have the expertise to talk about that. But I've watched a few videos on it, and I think it's crazy interesting the shadow part.
Yeah, definitely. I think a large part of what Ethan was saying, I think earlier, is with purpose and goals. Do you think that what's the beneficial what's beneficial about having a purpose, having a goal, and what do you think are the different options people can take to find their purpose, to find their goals, in essence?
I'd love to speak about this.
Sure.
So I've listened to Ted Kaczynski. Most people know him as the Unabomber,
Mm-hmm.
and he was absolutely nuts, but he was very, very smart at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And he writes about something that is actually applicable to this, which is what he named the power structure and or the power process, sorry. And he defined some activities as supportive towards the power process and other things as surrogate activities. So, to briefly contextualize, the power process is okay, I have a goal, I have to exert myself to achieve this goal, and then I'm going to realize that goal and get a sense of satisfaction out of it. Now, you can go through the power process in multiple ways, but you can go through it with an activity that is genuinely beneficial and an activity that he named surrogate. So, for example, some people may base their happiness on their academic success, and he argues that's a surrogate activity. You do not get anything physically tangible out of doing that, in the sense that um, you will not benefit directly. And that sounds counterintuitive, saying, okay, if I just do my uni work or pursue my career or something, it's not beneficial. But he argues that it is, and I see why he says that. When we were primalistic animals out in the wilderness, what do you
Still
think
are.
you would gain more? Yeah, what
Mm-hmm.
do you think you would gain more satisfaction from and feel a greater sense of accomplishment from building a shelter and protecting your loved ones, or getting decent, great pets that you revised for?
Mm-hmm.
And we replaced these bestial, fundamental goals that we would have had in the wild with things that are not really important.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, he argues this is where I disagree with him somewhat, and this is why he was partially crazy.
And he was a
He ar-
Unabomber. He
he
was
wasn't.
the
Yeah,
Unabomber.
yeah. Um, so for example, he argues that being part of a club is surrogate, and I don't necessarily agree. So, and he's arguing on the basis of nature and how anything that doesn't directly link back to his philosophy, he just says is surrogate pretty much. I don't think that's true. If you went to the gym and you're pursuing your health in that way, and you're pursuing your physical status in that way, um, there's no way of saying that's surrogate.
Mm.
That clearly matters. And again, with the societies and the clubs that he was talking about, that is tangible and that is beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
There is no arguing that. Okay, maybe some clubs are pointless in the grand scheme of things. But for example, if you went to, okay, we can use MMA as an example again. That is your ability to defend yourself and the ones around you from injustice, and to go through life with a finite amount of less suffering
Stress.
because you have the ability
Yeah.
and stress, yeah, because you have the ability to defend yourself and others, and you are quote unquote stronger.
Mm.
So it's about having goals that are achievable for one, don't overestimate. Two, actually helpful. Don't say of something useless. Oh, I'm gonna get 9,000 points on Roblox.
Mm-hmm.
Just
That is useful.
and three, um, make sure you go through this process of actual enjoyment and actual satisfaction. Allow yourself a minute to go, oh, fantastic, I did this,
Mm-hmm.
or feel that sense of accomplishment for doing
Positive
something.
self-talk.
Exactly, because that's the whole point. If you don't feel a sense of accomplishment from doing something, you shouldn't be doing it, really.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it is hard to realize that things that society push on us as ideas of success aren't necessarily in agreement with people's mental health. If you do amazingly at school and then amazingly at work, and then you come home and you're all alone,
Mhm.
you know, what have you actually benefited from that as a person, as an individual? You've just benefited in a monetary or artificially powerful way. Um,
Mm.
so
Mm.
yeah, just be aware.
But Barnes, would you like to speak on goal setting? That's all.
I
Speak on
mean,
anything.
I don't really have too
Oh,
much to say about goal setting. I think Ethan's covered a lot of it pretty
Okay.
well. But yeah, just set manageable goals, little steps. Take your time to reward yourself. Um, and like yeah, just keep moving forward. Um, and I know I do this, and I know Dan gets on me about it, and so do you, Murph. Like, don't set this massive goal and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get there. Like, don't do that. Set a little one, do that. Set a little one, do that. Set a little
Mhm.
one, do that. Keep moving forward
Mhm.
gradually. Otherwise, your motivation's gonna run out. You need to build your self discipline, and that's what gets your goals achieved.
Yeah. I better get
Um,
that. Firstly, Dan, your cam's gone off.
yeah, my phone ran out of charge.
Okay, no worries. That's fine.
The
Guys,
thing
this is not
drains.
sponsored by Camo.
Yeah,
Just so you
promise we're
know.
not.
I promise. If they do want to
50%
sponsor us,
reflow.
though, you know.
take
Yeah.
some free
Yeah,
Venom.
send us all pro,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
we'll use it.
To get back on topic a little bit, I wanted to say that I mean, it depends in regards to goal setting. I think a lot of people, it's hard to find a purpose. I know, I had my life in a stage kind of like a year ago where I was in a relationship, very long one. I was going gym, I was going uni. I had a plan of what I wanted to do. I wanted to, go uni, do this job, etc., etc. And then when it was all for the relationship, in essence, reflecting on it, it was for I wanted me and my ex now to have this relationship, this life. I wanted to have this job so that we could have this family, and all it was all to do with her. It was all attached to her. So when I ended up splitting with my ex, it was like everything, like completely, the whole world collapsed. It was like shit. So why am I at uni? Why am I doing this? Why am I in this industry? Why am I
Do I
going?
actually
Why
want
am I going to the gym? What am I doing? Like everything was like, what's going on? I had no purpose. Like my purpose was completely gone. And I
The
was like,
foundation was ripped from beneath you.
yeah, it was shit. And it's because the foundation was false. I shouldn't put everything into my girlfriend, right?
Surrogate. It's
Right.
clearly surrogate. Yeah.
Exactly.
Clearly.
But exactly. But yeah, my point is my whole world flipped around, and the way that I got through this is the fourth one that I said was isolation. Completely reduced my social interactions with everyone at the time, including some of you boys, which is a fault of my own. But I wanted to feel alone. Like, and this is one thing that, whether this is just a male thing or whether it's anyone who feels a level of sadness, and I won't call it depression because it wasn't. It was a sadness, a period of time. I was going through a breakup. It's hard to deal with, right? Um, and it's if you're going to do something like that, and you feel sort of numb and you don't have a sense of purpose, just try and do something or work towards something that you genuinely want, in essence. Like, so for me, it was gym. Like, there was the one thing that kept me going was gym. I love gym. I've always loved the gym, and I was just like, do you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna get really in shape because I used to go and try and get as big as I could be, but I was never, ripped. I've always been on the heavier side, and I was like, do you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna change something about that, and I was like, I'm gonna try my very best to get as lean as I can. And that was my goal. And through that goal, I got leaner and leaner and leaner, saw progression, felt a bit happier about myself. And then when I had that inner peace within myself I'm doing something, it's good, it's good, it's good. I was going to work still, I was still doing uni work, because uni work and work itself completely plateaued when the breakup happened. But gym intensified. Everyone knows about heartbreak gains. Everyone knows about
Oh
it.
yeah, the most powerful source of gains is heart.
They're amazing and I miss them. But they kept me going to the point where everything ended up balancing out. So then I managed to get everything else in my life back in shape, my mental, my inner peace, everything, because I was able to have the gym still going. I set this goal that I wanted to get leaner, I wanted to do this, and then Barnes was saying, setting these incremental goals. I think it's important for people. It can get people out of a rut with setting a goal and working towards that. It's very primitive, but if you set yourself a goal and you get it, the sense of achievement from doing that is
Yeah.
far greater than just going for with no purpose, no direction, misdirectionally, right?
We are animals at heart. I think that's a great place to slot in a 5 minute piss break.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, separate break. Maybe
Thought the
try to get
camera's
some
out as
cameras
well.
working.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
And then I'm happy afterwards to talk about some of the things people can do. I was going to mention it earlier, but like identifying and dealing with the root causes of bad mental health and some of the best practices to try and improve that.
Perfect. So piss break, and we'll be back.
See you guys.
Oh, the head pops up.
Hey!
One shiny head.
Nice.
Why is it so zoomed in? Why is it so shit?
Are we all officially ready and back to go?
Nah.
All right,
I just
beautiful.
see my bald head. That's it.
Beautiful. Well, we're going to keep that in. So we'll start off here again, boys. In regards to where we're going off, I want to quickly start with doing a little case study. So we've got a 19-year-old male who is single. He's dropped out of college or sixth form. Lives with his parents. Doesn't work out. Doesn't have a job. He has some friends. He doesn't see them very often in person, and then speaks to them online seldom. What would be your advice in regards to a step scheme as to how to help them? Where do they start?
You say that again, sorry.
Yep, sure. So, 19-year-old male,
Oh,
single, dropped out of college or sixth form, lives with his parents, doesn't work out, doesn't have a job, and he has friends, but he sees them very irregularly and occasionally online, like Discord. So, what would be your advice in regards to helping his mental health and/or fixing those problems? You can start with anyone.
Yo, right. How like supportive are his parents? Are they okay with him living at home for a little bit, or do they want him out?
Um, for the purposes of this, we'll say that they're relatively okay with it, but they would like him to get a job. Like they're pestering him, but they're not seriously saying you're out within a week or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think the guy should sit down, just himself, and have like a just get in your head, think about what he wants to do, what his problems are, why he's in that position, and think about the solutions that he needs to do. It's got to come from him. Like I can sit here and give him a 10 step plan, but it's ultimately got to be him.
Mhm.
But I'd say you got to start building your discipline up, getting habits formed,
Mhm.
get working out. That's why I said like if his parents okay with supporting him, focus on the gym. Get like go to the gym for a month. Just solely focus on that if you can.
Mhm.
Get your health up, get into a habit, start working out. You'll feel better. You'll look better. Your confidence will go up. Cool. Meantime, and you said he dropped out at uni.
Dropped out of sixth
Yeah.
form or
Oh,
uni.
dropped out.
It doesn't really
Okay.
matter. It's indifferent. You can go
Well,
from both.
I've either choose to go back into education for a topic that you like, or just throw yourself into a field. Get a job, even if it's Mackey's, even if it's Tesco, even if it's working in a warehouse. Got to
Mhm.
have respect for people who work there. It's honest work for an honest person.
Mhm.
It's good. You can't frown upon that, and people who do are ignorant, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So get yourself in a job, get yourself into a routine, get some cash in. Money doesn't buy happiness, but sure does bloody help.
Mhm.
Get your funds up, get your health up, and then it should just come naturally. And then yeah, at some point, if you save up enough, you can move out, or you can get your own apartment, or start paying rent. If you pay rent to your parents, I'm sure they'll be happy to have you there. You know, your son, you're their son.
Eases
I'm
your
sure.
conscience as well,
Yeah,
knowing you're
you know,
contributing.
they see that you're doing something positive. Um, yeah, and then just keep talking, foster your friendships, and keep building your habits, and take it from there. Take each day by day, and slowly address. Don't try and get a job, go gym, go
All at
out, get a
once.
girlfriend all in one day, because I try and do that and it don't work. You know,
Yeah.
take it month by month. Have like a 1 month rolling plan. Get your gym sorted. Get your job sorted. Get your friendship sorted,
Mhm.
etc., etc. That's what I'd do personally.
So to summarize, we'd say have a sit down, reflect on where you
Yeah,
are.
I think that's my main point. You got to sit down and sit there, like sit there, get some deep tunes on,
Mhm.
stare out the window,
Yeah.
get in your head. Got to be comfortable in your head,
Yeah.
and really think. And if you end up crying, it's cool. It's good. It means you're actually doing the right thing.
Yeah. I agree. So we'll say, from you, Barnes, have a sit and a reflect on where you want to go and what you want to do. Make a
Write it
plan.
down. Right, make
Make a little
make a little
plan.
mind map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brainstorm. Make a plan. Start getting active. Start getting a job, a routine. Start paying rent. All of these different things, and then
Yeah.
everything else will work itself
Yeah.
out.
Like, do you remember? Dan, you'll be able to remember this, but the Christmas after like the year of lockdown.
Yeah.
So when we came home from
2021.
first year of uni, came
Mhm.
home that Christmas. I remember sitting in my room at 5 a.m. Uh, one night. It was locked down. I hadn't gone back to uni. I took a photo of myself, right? And in that photo, I hated it. I've still got the photos. I looked at myself,
Mhm.
ungroomed, no haircut. Like I looked at myself, I was sad. Like I just took a selfie and just sat and looked at it for a little bit, and I was like, right, what the hell was this, right? And
Have we all done that,
yeah,
by the way? Quick interjection. I've done that,
or is that
definitely.
just something I've done? Yeah.
Yeah. I've
I took a picture, but like
Done it with my
I'm a big
legs, my
believer in.
tiny little legs.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think it's quite a big thing, is especially if you're a little bit heavier, take a picture of it and just
Oh
look at
yeah,
it. Just don't shy away from it. I never used to look in the mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror, and that's
yeah.
you. That's who you are right now. Is that who you want to be, or do you want to go elsewhere? And then
Just
start
yeah,
reflect on that.
just take this photo, look at it hard. You know, it might disgust you, it might not. And then yeah, like for me, the next day I applied to work in the factories, and then me and Dan did the month or two of food factory shifts, and yeah,
Hmm.
that sorted me out financially quite a bit.
Yeah.
Got me to go Zanti, and it put me back on a pretty reasonable track. Um, it's not a permanent fix, but you know, just take that photo, have a look at it, and evaluate.
Yeah. So Ethan or Dan, would you have any different plans or things you would change in regards to order of
You
plans
can
for
go
this
down
person?
if you'd like.
Sure, I have some things to say. I think sitting down and thinking about yourself is probably the first and best step you need to do. I think you need to look at why you're in the position you're in, what led to it, and try and be honest with yourself, which is going to be the hardest part. I think a great thing to do would be go for a nice 2 to 3 hour long walk. Don't bring your phone. If you go for this walk without anything to distract you, you'll just be bored. And after a bit of boredom, you'll push through and you'll start to reflect on certain things. You'll allow yourself to think about the things in life that you like, the things that went wrong, where you are. I mean, we're looking at this guy who doesn't work out. He's in his parents' house, no sixth form, no college, no future prospects, right? So I'd say you don't have to rush life. You don't have to compare yourself to your peers who at this
You've
point
got
will have
time.
careers lined up, right? You're 19. A lot of people turn their life around at 30. You have the benefit of at 19. So I think as long as you take that first step in changing your mindset towards okay, growth, little little by little, step by step. First thing I'd say is to try to get a job. I wouldn't. I think the factories is fine, but I'd go for a more social job. I'd say retail. I'd say working as a barista. I'd love to work as a barista. I think these retail jobs, they're such a good start. You'll get money. You'll get a job where you do something. You're on your
Social
feet.
interaction.
Especially the friends, yeah. So you need some friends in life. I'm just thinking you have to take care of your mental health and your health before you can really start to project yourself towards long term success. You need to become that person first and foremost. So to become that person first and foremost, you need to solidify your foundation. So with a bit of money, you'll either be able to move out from your parents, or you'll be able to pay your parents so that they're happy to keep you. And I try work on that. Keep a healthy relationship, give them some money, help around the house. Get this job, work on that. Um, it's hard to say what to do next because there's a lot of things you might want to do, and there's a lot of things. Everyone has their own path towards success. Everyone has their own path towards self mastery. But I'd say start working on yourself in any way you see fit. I personally, I'd say reading books is very good. I'd say meditation and journaling could accelerate your growth and your ability to understand yourself. I'd say, um, it could be very important for you to find a girlfriend. It could be very important for you to find some close friends that you can relax with. So yeah, I'd say don't try not to get too far ahead of yourself. Try not to put yourself in any mental barriers. If I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't study. I think any person with, some spare time could learn how to code and try to get a software job, try to get a data analyst job. But for the meantime, I think the most important part is getting that social job and working on yourself and just acknowledging, where you are, how you got there.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything you said, other than the maybe you might want to get a girlfriend. But for me personally, and this is a personal thing, I wouldn't get or even think about the possibility of a relationship when you're at your lowest point, or when you're at a point where you need to turn your life around. I think that's the last thing that you need to think about personally, in regards to what you need to get done. Because if you're not where you want to be, if you don't love yourself, you don't have the ability or the capability to love someone else. You don't. And if you do, then it's not gonna work. The relationship isn't gonna foster well, and you're gonna get in a
Of course,
situation.
but I said everyone's path is different. And that's the point. Maybe he does love himself. Maybe the problem isn't that he has low self-esteem. Maybe it's that he's stupid. He fell out of
Mm,
school. He's just a stupid guy,
yeah,
and
maybe.
he might be fine with himself. He might be goofy and fun loving. So
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay, so I'll say then, if you're at a point where you don't love yourself, or you need to reflect on yourself, like we're saying in regards to reflection and understanding who you are and trying to better yourself, that's not the time to get a girlfriend or even chase women. I think in general, chasing women shouldn't occur. You shouldn't chase women in general, but don't search for a girlfriend at your lowest point at all. It's probably the worst thing you could do, from my personal opinion. Like, sort yourself out first, get yourself going, and then go into that. But yeah, how about you, Ethan? Have you got anything you'd like to say about the planning, or no?
I feel like we've touched everything quite nicely. The only thing I would probably add is we briefly mentioned it with the girlfriend thing. Just make sure your time's not going towards something deconstructive.
Mm.
Don't dump effort into something that isn't beneficial. So, for example, just gonna spend all day gaming or something, and then in your head you're like, oh, it's fine, I'll be a professional gamer or something. Just like, there's nothing wrong with that if you decide that that's absolutely 100% going to be your career path, but you will likely end up in the same position as people who dedicate their entire lives to football. Such a minute, tiny, tiny chance of success, and hitching your wagon to something that is not development oriented. You don't develop anything. You don't get any skills from doing that, really. Nothing
Football,
transferable
yes.
from the
Video games,
workplace.
no. I think.
You okay. There's more you could put on your CV from football, but it's not work experience. It's not like team management, for example, unless you are the leader in that football position. But then if you're the leader, then maybe it's going to go somewhere. Um,
Mm.
so do not sabotage yourself. That's what I would say. If you're gonna put time, because like exactly like we said, when you're young, you're wealthy in time, and when you're old, you're wealthy in money in general. Um, so use the time that you've got well, and
Mm.
don't spend all of it on Instagram or on Tinder or something looking for a girlfriend, or going out every single day, wasting money that you don't have. Um, just try and be aware of what you are doing. Do one little good thing a day. Oh, okay, today I'm going to go to the gym. Oh, today I'm going to apply to a job. Just one little good thing. And then if your parents ask you, hey, little Billy, what are you doing? Are you doing anything? Why are you actually like making any progress towards this front? You can say, yeah, I've done this, this, and this.
Mm.
And then even if you're not paying them any money, or you might not have to, but if they are on your back about it, then they're likely to lay off a little bit if they see that you're at least making progress. So that'd be my advice.
Beautiful. Well, we'll segue from that then. But I appreciate all of that advice from all you boys. There's three more stats I want to get across to you boys. See what you guys think of them. So, 20% of adolescents may experience a mental health problem in any given year. That's what we spoke about earlier. Which depends on the statistics. Some say 20%, some say 25%. 50% of mental health problems are established by age 14, and 75 are by age 24. And then the final one being 10% of children and young people between 5 to 16 years have a clinically diagnosable mental problem, yet 70% of children or adolescents who experience said mental health problem have not had the appropriate interventions at sufficient early ages. So what are your thoughts on those stats?
Oh, it really rubs me the wrong way, some of those stats,
Mhm.
to be brutally honest. This idea of like clinical mental illness is something so dangerous at times.
And ill-defined.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It's so up to interpretation. There are cases where it's required, and people will eventually get to a point, if unsupervised or not helping themselves or being helped by others or whatever, where they require clinical intervention. But especially in children, if there is a clinical diagnosis, often the solution is to clinically intervene with medication, and that's
Mm.
a lot of the time not needed, in my opinion. Especially in America, this is a big issue. So when I was in school, the grammar school, I knew I had dyslexia. Um, they did another evaluation after my initial evaluation when I was younger to just make sure I did actually need that extra time. And the on-site school therapist or whatever, who I'd never met before, I have no idea if she was qualified or not, diagnosed me also with ADD, which is if people
Mm.
don't know, it's attention deficit disorder, and it's like the lower form of ADHD. And they recommended to my parents that I went on some sort of drug for it, and I absolutely refused, and my parents absolutely refused, and I'm very happy because that is ridiculous in my opinion. Most people, especially in cases of mental health where it's like behavioral disorders or something like that, if the first solution is to put them on some sort of medication, that's not necessarily beneficial. But there are some positives to take away from those stats. Um, I would agree that a lot of mental health issues will manifest when you are younger. So that what was the exact wording? It's they initiate when something like that when they're
S-
young.
So there's the statistic was 10% of children and younger have a clinically diagnosable mental problem, and yet 70% of children who experience said problem.
What was the other stats? I
Um,
think that one was
Yeah.
not the relevant one.
okay, so the other stats were 20% of adolescents may experience mental health issues in any given year.
The last one.
Um,
I'm just
50% of
kidding.
mental health problems are established by age
That's the word.
14.
That's the
Yeah,
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
established.
I think that's
I,
true.
yeah, that wouldn't surprise me, and it's not a bad thing either necessarily. If, in my personal opinion, if you're gonna go through it, I think most people will go through one big mental health issue in their life at least. Get it over when you're young.
Definitely, definitely.
Like, learn from it when you're younger. You've not got a mortgage. You've not got kids. You've not got big financial responsibilities looming over
No,
your head.
you're not looking after anyone. You're not responsible for
Exactly.
anyone.
Don't feel bad about it if it's happening to you when you're young. Don't feel like you're unprepared. Lucky is probably a strong word, saying, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
lucky that it's happening to me when I'm younger," but it's better then. So this idea of them being established at a young age, because they will stick with you. If you have an issue that develops through trauma or something, for example, it's going to stay with you. But take pride and
Own it.
some, yeah, and own it, and take some, I forgot the word here, take some refuge, that's it, in the fact that it's happening to you in a stage of your life where you have the time and the resources to deal with it.
Mm.
Hmm.
You can work it out now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And face it
Oh,
also, I think.
I think when you're very young, it's hard to work through it. If you're 10 years old and you've got this childhood trauma, you can't just be looking up how to
Oh yeah.
meditate through it.
Maybe once you've passed like 15, 16, maybe, but
Yeah, but no, I think
it'll
the
be
idea
gradual.
is that most problems in adolescence stem from your childhood, and a lot more than what we think stems from childhood. And the research is coming out now, especially on things like addiction. So addiction mainly comes from lack of warmth and lack of kindness from your parents as a child, or childhood trauma. And I think this is such a true thing, and people ignore it. But your childhood is going to have tremendous effect on how you are as a person, not just your less important things like your personality type, what you're going to be like, your characteristics, but also just whether or not you're susceptible to addiction, whether or not you are an anxious person or an anxious personality type, attachment type, sorry, in relationships, how you look for a romantic partner, how you've built up your basic understanding of human nature will come from how your parents reacted and how they raised you.
And some of it is genetic, right?
Yeah, it's hard to distinguish though.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I wanted to say if any of you boys got anything else you'd like to harp on or any topic you would like to raise now.
I just like to say I was also diagnosed with ADHD, and I was diagnosed with full-blown ADHD, and I was recommended to go on, the medicine and things. My parents said no. I didn't really know. I was too young at the time to care or do much about it. I think I was like the age of 5 to 10 or whatever. And I didn't have ADHD. I was just a kid, like a young kid with a lot of energy. And I grew out of it, and I'm completely fine now. It might have been a sleep thing because in South Africa, we used to wake up at 5 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. and stuff. School times are really early. And it's like a lot of people will get diagnosed with these things when it might not be the case. They might grow out of it. Look at our friend Cam or my cousin Cam. He was like, I don't know if he was diagnosed, but they might have thought he had ADHD, and he just grew out of it. Now he's perfectly fine and normal.
Mm.
So a lot of these things, it's a bit much to diagnose something or something, because especially because it could self fulfill.
Yeah.
You could identify with it, and then that'll make it a permanent trait. So I'd always, I'd say people need to err on the side of caution when it comes to diagnosing these kids, especially with something a bit more permanent. Imagine you said someone had depression. You said it's
Mm.
not your fault, you were depressed, and then they start to believe it, and then they blame life on it, and then it self fulfills. And some people will have it, and some people do need to be treated, but we do need to be more careful about how we address this topic because it does have some consequences that we need to address.
Yeah. No, I agree. How about you, Barnes? Have you
Yeah,
got anything to say?
that's good.
Nah, yeah, just echo what Dan just said, and yeah, with the medication thing, I think doctors. I don't think it's necessarily the doctor's fault. I think it's more like the policy and the rules in place. But like, they're so eager to chuck medication at the problem, and I really don't think medication's the solution for 80% of mental health problems or anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, like I know me and Ethan, probably you two as well. Pretty strong stances on refusing this, being offered antidepressants and stuff, and it's just
Mhm.
yeah, I'm good.
No.
Yeah.
Never. I never form a reliance on a drug to
Yeah,
help me. Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not worth it. But it's the fact that like they're actually so eager just to chuck it out, and I think that needs to change. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, have you
I was,
guys got anything else you'd like to bring up?
yeah, it's sort of slipped my mind now.
I can say something first if you want more
Yeah,
time.
go on. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to talk about the root problem of mental health. And I can't speak with absolute certainty. I can't speak like I'm an expert, but I've been in this world for a long time. I just find it very interesting, and I look at a lot of content. So the basis of it is a lot of our times our mental health is everything to do with ourselves and how we react to the world. A lot of the times mental health comes from things like resentment
Mhm.
or negative thoughts, embarrassment, shame especially, and these emotions that we feel. And when we don't have an outlet for these things, when we don't talk about it to our friends, and when we don't get rid of it, contemplate it, or anything like that, we internalize it, and it becomes part of our character, and it becomes a part of our person. So oftentimes we might carry this on and give it to the next person. We might take that resentment and we might pass it on, and we'll keep it at the same time. We don't just get rid of it. We'll give it to someone and keep it ourselves. And all these negative emotions will affect how you think and how you want to do things. And it comes to the point where you keep building up enough of them and you never unload. You develop things like depression. You develop things like anxiety, where because of so many bad things have happened and you've just never got around to getting rid of these thought patterns and these behaviors, it reinforces itself. Where you have a very awkward interaction with someone and you feel a lot of shame for it, and then that carries on. You have another awkward interaction with another person and you feel a lot of shame for it. Maybe they laugh at you, right? Or you make a joke and it falls flat, right? You ask someone out romantically and they say no. They say ew, right? These things, this shame that we carry with ourselves. And then we feel this anxiety. We might stutter the next time we speak to someone and feel more shame for it. And we keep telling ourselves that this is a problem, that we don't like ourselves, and that we are the problem, that we're disgusting. And then we'll get into the habit of staying in bed all day and doing things like this. So what it comes down to is these thoughts, these negative emotions and feelings that we never ever express, we never get rid of, we never deal with. We just suck it up and get on with our lives. And a lot of this can come down to we don't give ourselves a chance to think. We're too busy doing things. We're always listening to music. We're always listening to podcasts on Audible. We're always talking to someone or studying or watching a movie. We're always so busy. That's the biggest characteristic of our Western lives. We're the most busy society, probably civilization that's ever been. If you look at some of the Asian societies and other parts of the world, they're just not as busy as us. They don't work as long as us. We work longer hours now than we did in the 1900s. And I think the biggest way to see this is, why do people stay up at night thinking about their problems and thinking about everything they did wrong? Because there's no other time to think about it. We never sit down and go for a walk without earphones. We never sit down and talk to people about the things that happened today. We never start a journal and write these things down. We never sit down to meditate. These things aren't ever talked about. They aren't ever encouraged. And it just leaves these neurotic thoughts in our head, and we become more and more neurotic the longer they stay in our head, because we're so busy. We never have time to offload them or even think about them. So what I'd say to people is, if you want to start to address some of the root causes of your negative self-talk, your negative thinking, those days where you don't feel so good, I'd say allow yourself more compassion, more free time, and more space. Give yourself space to meditate and journal. And sometimes these things feel like chores, and they can be a chore. Looking after your mental health isn't free and easy. If it was, we wouldn't have the crisis that we have on our hands now. So do these. Those are the two biggest ones: meditation and journaling. But there are easier ones. Going for a walk in nature. I go for a walk every single morning, and it's been one of the best things for my mental health that I've ever done. It's hard to have a bad day when you go for a nice brisk walk in the morning and you can hear the water traveling by in a stream, or you can hear the birds singing. And these activities where I don't go with any earphones, I just go with myself. And sometimes I'm bored, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I think about things that happened yesterday, sometimes I think about things in the future. A lot of the time I try and stay present, and a lot of the time I try and think about how I feel about certain things. And giving myself this time and this space allows me to really address my thoughts, and it allows time for my subconscious thoughts and my subconscious feelings to bubble up into my conscious brain so that I can finally address them. So I'd like to, if I was to give away one message, it was to let people think more, give them more free time, go for walks without earphones, meditate, journal. Don't keep yourself so busy all the time, and don't be so harsh on yourself. Show yourself the compassion you would show others to yourself, because we treat other people around us so well. We understand each other so well, and we're also kind to each other. But when it comes to ourselves, we have these very high standards. We have these excuses of why we should have got something done, but it'd be okay if someone else didn't do it. So I'd keep that in mind.
Really like that. I really like, especially the mindfulness aspect of just not having something going on straight away every single minute of every single day. We're made into consumers by society. We have to be ingesting some form of content or some activity every single second of every day. There's a very strong argument to be had that we are all being pushed into ADHD, ADD characteristics by society currently, in the form of these 5-second clips on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and it makes it so difficult just to sit down and do nothing. Our ancestors would have just done that for hours. Sat down, you've done everything you need to do for the day, you're well fed, you're
Chill.
well watered. Yeah, just chill. Just being bored would have been a natural part of life where a lot of mindfulness and self-reflecting could have happened, but we just don't have that anymore.
Even
And
pre-internet, if you think about
yeah,
before the
yeah,
internet was invented.
yeah, it's awful, really awful, and it's very difficult. The nagging feeling of I should be doing something is hard to battle. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a fantastic quote, and it says that this is what I was trying to think of earlier. That society makes us miserable and then gives us drugs to be happy. And it's a
Mm.
powerful quote, and it's right. It's fine just to feel bad. I'm not saying none of us are saying to reject help if you need it, but just to be evaluative and critical of your own individual circumstances and to not put it past yourself to get things done on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to try to get things done on your own first.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can get through to the other side without pushing yourself through for the artificial drugs or whatever, you can turn around and say, I did that on my own. And even if you do get, and if you get through it with the help of with other people or with a stimulant or whatever, you can say, I still did it. I still did it. I still got it
Mm.
done. And that's a battle that I overcame.
Yeah.
And it's important to have that mindset. And it's important just to be aware of the world that we live in and this environment around us, and to try and change that environment as effectively as possible without focusing too much on things that you can't control.
Yeah.
I think so. If you let it, the environment around you will lead you into certain places like social media,
Yeah.
TikTok, TV. It'll just the natural places to eat junk food and watch TV. So you gotta be careful about where your environment is leading you. Sometimes you have to push back, and sometimes that'll be difficult. There'll be resistance to that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Don't let yourself get molded by the world around you. Try and mold the world.
Uh,
Mm.
I fully agree. I also wanted to reflect on what Dan said right at the very start of that long, very good speech.
I had to try remember it in your head, like
Yeah,
on the spot.
yeah, right,
Go
right
on,
at the
say something.
start. But no, at the start you were on about having these negative emotions that you keep within yourself and you end up sending onto other people, right? Now I often have.
Very common.
I also want to go into anger, but I'll go into that in a minute. With that, I feel like in lockdown, for instance, I was known. I'm a very angry person since I was a kid. I've always been like an angry person. So whenever I go to the gym, that's how I control my anger, right? I go to the gym, I lift my weights, and that's my fix for it, right? But I didn't have that in lockdown. I was completely to myself in my room, and there was no way of getting that anger out, right? Um, so I couldn't control my anger. I just ended up going online playing games and then just shitting on people while I was playing these games because I was just pissed off. Do you know what I mean? I was I was pissed when I would play a game. If I did well, cool, that's neutral. If I did badly, I'd be pissed, right? And I'd vent to these people, and I'm just being a negative person, putting my emotions negatively onto
Projecting
others.
on them.
I'm projecting my negative emotions onto them, correct? Right? So it's like that's such a negative thing to have, and I know that was a thing of lockdown, but in general, just reflecting on that, it was interesting that it correlated to my experience and how in the long term being able to just control your emotions, and that's what gyms helped me to do. And I would encourage anyone who has some level of anger within themselves to go to gym as a way to control that anger. I think it's really, really good to go to the gym and just lift weights, and it sort of it teaches yourself to, okay, this is anger, okay, cool, I can use this positively and I can also control it, because I'm not going to be angry when I go to the gym. I'm angry when I'm about to do my top set and I'm going to push this weight as hard as I physically can, right? I can use that anger in a positive way, and you can anger isn't a negative thing. You can use it positively. But then at the same time, when I finish my set and someone's just said nice rep, I'm not going to punch them in the face because I'm pissed off. You control it. And then once you start to control your anger, you can realize all of these emotions you can try and learn to control, which is very important. But I just thought it was a cool example that I could spring from my experience that linked with what you were saying.
Sometimes it's good to challenge them. Sometimes you also just need a thought breaker. So sometimes you have this neurotic thought pattern that's constantly in your head of either I'm not good enough or something happened that I don't like, or just you keep thinking about it. And like if you do something like gym or martial arts, you just you stop thinking about it for 2 hours. And when you give your
Mm,
brain that 2 hour break, it it's able to put it into the subconscious for more processing, one. And it also helps you forget about it. So for that 2 hour break, your brain was grid free. And then maybe an hour after gym, it's still free. You're still free from that thought. And then
yeah.
maybe an hour after. And sometimes it'll never come back.
Mm,
Sometimes it will come back. But either way, it's still a good thing.
yeah, for sure. Have you got any comments, Barnes?
Not really.
Perfect.
Any stories? Any stories
Yeah,
for us?
personal experiences.
What
How
with
about that time?
anger?
Actually,
Anything.
No, no, go on, Daniel.
no, I was gonna make up a story and make up a joke, but I couldn't think of one at the time.
Okay.
I was trying so hard,
No,
but I couldn't think of one.
I don't know. I don't know if I have like a good example because I feel like in the last, I don't know, year, honestly, working at Amazon this summer, 4 months,
Hmm.
emotional intelligence developed. I've gone from level like 4 to like level 50.
Mm.
Yeah, because I just like obviously
How?
standing there for like 10 hours. I sat there and thought about it. There was certain things that pissed me off or got on my nerves. Like I had certain things with the house, trying to get the house sorted. I had certain things with obviously parents on a day-to-day basis, or
Can
someone
I
said
interject
something to me.
quickly?
Yeah,
you were able to sit down with your thoughts. You were able to
yeah.
consciously
For
process
10
those
hours, I
thoughts.
got, and a lot of the time because I was hot and bothered and working, and I obviously didn't want to be at Amazon.
Nothing but your thoughts.
It kind of it well at the first it fueled my anger. I would sit there ranting to myself in my head, and I was
And to
getting
me.
worked up. Yeah, and
Mhm.
I'd sit at break with Murph, and I'd ran and ran and ran, and then I don't know. I think by like August, third month in, I kind of took a different approach. I was like, hang on a minute, let's calm it down. Let's think about it. Let's evaluate the situation a bit more, slow it down a bit, and yeah, and it really helped. And I was able to look at loads of different situations that had happened in the past and at the same time the current. Um, at the present, and it was good. And I really feel like my emotional intelligence has developed as a result of that, just by spending time with very little going on other than the bloody shit radio
Yeah.
playing green grass every bloody hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I feel like I can approach situations a lot better. I'm not perfect by any means,
No.
but I don't feel angry very often at all.
You're a very laid back person.
Yeah.
No,
So
I agree. I think. No, you were gonna say that?
No, I was just gonna say my phone ran out of charge.
Oh, okay, no worries. Yeah, I think Amazon was definitely a big thing. I think I noticed a difference because obviously I work with you. I noticed a massive difference in that third, fourth month. I think it's about being a bit more present and mindful and understanding what am I actually doing here. Like this isn't hard as well. It got a lot easier with Amazon. Because we thought at the start you don't want to be there. You get all these negative emotions, and it's all your own perception. You make it negative. It's not negative itself. It's just you. Oh, I don't want to be here. It's shit. Oh, it's hot. This, that, the other, and you get flustered. And but when we were sat there and thinking, there are people doing far worse jobs than what we were doing, and we were on a decent pay at Amazon,
shit.
and,
Yeah,
and
like,
we were sat there like, come on, man, like there's far worse out there. And
yeah.
being able to just be mindful of this really isn't that bad. Like I can do this. This is completely fine. And we had a time scale, right? So we weren't going to be doing it for that
Like
long.
the first 2 months were like, yeah, I'm doing this job. It's good, but it's so hot. I want to quit. Be arsed. Like,
Yeah,
I want to enjoy my summer. All this lot. But by the end, it was like, nope. You've pushed through. You've come out better, financially stronger, much stronger, and 8K over summer. That's a
yeah,
huge achievement for me.
yeah.
And yeah, like definitely helped develop as a person. And like I was speaking to all the Portuguese workers while I was there, and like hearing what they got to say, and a
Their
lot of them were
perspective.
very chilled out people, and yeah, it's good. Um, I think it's one of the main benefits of having a job, like a summer job or working at this age. Um, gives you a different perspective. So yeah.
No, I fully agree. Does anyone have anything else that they want to mention before we cut things off here?
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. All good. Beautiful. So we'll wrap things up here. I wanted to quickly reiterate what I said at the beginning with if anyone is
Like and
seeking
subscribe.
not like and subscribe. If anyone's seeking mental health solutions or any help with that or advice, then there'll be loads of websites in the description where you can click or ring them and they'll give you good advice. And thank you boys for the pod. It's been great. I
Yeah,
appreciate
you're
it.
remember to
welcome.
pick up the fork.
Yeah, pick up the fork and
Yeah.
drink water, boys. Awesome.
Drink water.
All right, speak to you later.